So, have you ever looked into your spice cabinet and just realized that one of those common herbs,
Mm,
maybe the one you just toss on a pizza or into your pasta sauce, might be a genuine biological powerhouse?
right.
And we're not talking about old wives' tales here. We're talking about focused scientific research, really zeroing in on a surprising kitchen staple.
It's the ultimate case of hidden potential, isn't it? Just sitting right under our noses.
Yeah.
So today we're taking a deep dive into the specific health benefits of oregano oil based entirely on the stack of material you shared with us.
Okay.
And our mission is really to move past the simple supplement claims and analyze the mechanism, because everything we are about to discuss, it all stems from three core incredibly potent properties identified in these sources.
Oh, those are.
It is fundamentally antimicrobial, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory.
Okay, so let's unpack this with some real specificity.
Yeah.
When we're talking about these kinds of concentrated botanical extracts, it all comes down to the acts of chemistry.
Always does.
Our materials consistently highlight two compounds that are doing, well, 99% of the heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
If you take away anything from this deep dive, you should remember these names: carvacrol and thymol.
Carvacrol and thymol, they are the elements driving this entire diverse list of potential benefits.
The power players.
Exactly. They are the molecular engines. Carvacrol in particular often makes up the largest percentage, and it gives the oil its incredibly sharp, distinct aroma.
You can definitely smell it.
Oh, absolutely. But more importantly, its reputation as a potent defender.
So let's start right there with that defense mechanism. The scope of its effectiveness is, well, it's wide.
Very wide.
When we look at the antimicrobial breadth, the data is pretty comprehensive. The oil is shown to be effective against a massive variety of common biological invaders.
Right.
We're talking about bacteria.
All viruses and fungi.
Yeah, it really does function as a kind of triple threat compound.
And what's truly fascinating here, and what really elevates this from just being an interesting natural compound to a subject of serious clinical interest,
Okay.
is its effectiveness against the toughest targets. We have to dedicate some time to the aha moment that was kind of buried in the sources.
Which was?
The promising results found in lab studies against antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria.
Now that,
Yeah.
that is a huge claim. A huge claim. I mean, the global challenge of resistance means that traditional pharmaceuticals are struggling to keep up.
They are.
So how does a natural compound, one that's been around forever, manage to do what some sophisticated modern medicines are struggling with? What specific mechanism did the sources suggest carvacrol uses?
Well, it really comes down to structural integrity.
Yeah.
So traditional antibiotics, they often target specific internal processes of the bacteria, which, the bacteria can evolve to bypass.
They find a workaround.
Exactly. But carvacrol is a potent lipophilic compound, which just means it has a high affinity for lipids, the fatty components that make up the bacterial cell membrane.
So it's essentially a structural assault. It's not trying to outsmart it, it's just breaking it down.
Precisely. Carvacrol interacts with and effectively disrupts that lipid bilayer. It creates pores or holes in the bacterial membrane.
Wow.
And once that membrane is breached, the bacteria can't maintain its internal pressure or regulate its environment. It loses essential ions and ultimately ruptures.
So it's much harder for the bacteria to evolve a resistance to having its fundamental physical structure compromised like that.
Much, much harder.
That structural assault really explains why it might be effective against those resistant superbugs.
It does.
So to ground this in reality, let's look at some common threats. The sources didn't just stay in the sterile lab environment, right?
Not at all.
They specifically highlighted its effectiveness against common foodborne pathogens.
Right. Think about the culprits you hear about constantly, like E. coli and Salmonella.
The big ones.
Knowing that this oil has shown the capacity to disrupt the cell membranes of these specific widespread threats, it provides a real actionable weight to those deep biological findings.
Yeah, it suggests a potential for use that goes far beyond just, supplementation.
Absolutely.
And if we transition from the bacterial angle to the fungal side, we find equally robust results.
Absolutely. The oil has very strong antifungal properties. The test tube studies that were referenced show it can effectively inhibit the growth of candida.
Which is arguably the most common fungal issue people face internally.
It is, and the sheer destructive power of carvacrol against fungal cell walls is similar to what we see against bacteria.
So it's not limited to internal battles then.
Not at all. Its utility is also topical. The sources indicated its potential to help manage common external conditions,
Like what?
specifically mentioning things like athlete's foot, which just confirms its versatility as a potent, wide-spectrum agent. And it's all driven by those twin core compounds, carvacrol and thymol.
It's incredible how powerful this oil is externally. But, okay, if those compounds are ingested, how do they handle the constant structural damage that's happening inside the body? Let's pivot to that internal cleanup and talk about the antioxidant mechanism. This is where it gets really interesting for me because the benefit shifts from defense to maintenance.
And that maintenance function is critical. The oil is exceptionally rich in antioxidants. We
Mm.
often talk generally about antioxidants neutralizing harmful free radicals.
Right.
But for a deep dive like this, we need to understand how potent this compound is. Carvacrol and thymol, they are classified as strong radical scavengers.
Okay, what does radical scavenger mean in practical terms for someone listening?
It means they are structurally optimized to safely donate an electron to a highly reactive free radical, which is basically a molecule missing an electron.
And that stabilizes it.
It stabilizes it and stops the chain reaction of cellular damage. In fact, the sources suggest that oregano oil often measures very high on the RIA scale.
Oxygen radical absorbance capacity.
That's the one, sometimes rivaling or even exceeding many well-known antioxidant vitamins.
That scale gives us a much better reference point than just calling it a protective coating or something vague like that.
Exactly.
And so its connection here is just vital. If free radicals are left unchecked, they cause pervasive cell damage over time.
Precisely. And this chronic oxidative stress,
Yeah.
it's not merely a sign of aging.
No.
It's a major accelerant for chronic diseases. The material you share draws a direct line highlighting the protective potential of these antioxidant actions, specifically in relation to, well, the onset and progression of conditions like certain cancers and heart disease.
So when you realize that you might be mitigating the foundational molecular processes of major chronic illnesses, the antioxidant function really moves center stage.
Absolutely.
It makes the whole discussion move from simple symptom relief to preventative health. Now let's talk about that third pillar, the anti-inflammatory effects.
Yeah. Right. So inflammation is one of the most fundamental processes of the body, but when it becomes chronic, it is just. It's destructive.
Yeah.
And the compounds in oregano oil, and again, specifically carvacrol, may help reduce systemic inflammation throughout the body.
How does that mechanism differ from the structural assault on bacteria or the scavenging of free radicals? Is it a different process?
It is. Here, we are talking about modulating internal pathways. So while the sources didn't detail every single cytokine, they pointed to the oil's capacity to downregulate specific inflammatory pathways.
So it's like turning down the volume on the body's alarm system.
That's a great way to put it. By inhibiting the expression of certain pro-inflammatory mediators, it can reduce the systemic discomfort that comes with chronic inflammation.
Which raises an important question. If this action is systemic, where does it provide the most visible, maybe the most tangible benefit for the body?
Well, we connect this back to conditions defined by persistent, often debilitating inflammation. The source material specifically referenced the potential to benefit conditions like arthritis. For someone living with chronic joint pain, anything that offers a systemic reduction in those inflammatory signals, especially without the harshness associated with some traditional anti-inflammatory drugs, well, that's a major area of exploration.
Moving from systemic inflammation to a very specific internal ecosystem, let's zero in on the gut.
Okay.
This is arguably the most common modern application for natural antimicrobials today. The sources emphasize the specific role oregano oil plays in digestive health, using its core properties to support gut health by helping to maintain a functional and healthy microbial balance.
And this is where the conversation really needs nuance.
How so?
Well, we just established that the oil is a potent, broad-spectrum killer. It disrupts membranes. So if you're taking something that kills bacteria, there's a natural concern that you might, wipe out the good bacteria too.
That's the challenge. Yeah, if you're trying to manage an ecosystem, you don't want to use a blunt instrument. Did the sources address this selectivity, or is the application more focused on known overgrowth issues?
It's much more focused. The application is often highly targeted at dysbiosis and imbalance.
Okay.
The specific detail mentioned in the sources is using the oil to prevent the overgrowth of harmful bacteria. So it's not necessarily designed to be a long-term daily prebiotic. It's more of a tool to reestablish proper balance when that balance has tipped.
Tipped toward Pathogenicity or just overgrowth in the wrong place?
Exactly.
What's an example of an overgrowth issue that these materials specifically identified?
The sources specifically named SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowths.
Nebo, right.
SIBO occurs when bacteria that normally live in the large intestine migrate upward into the small intestine, and that leads to fermentation and some really severe digestive symptoms.
I see.
Because the oil's compounds are effective against these specific misplaced colonies, it is used to bring the population under control and restore the correct bacterial geography.
That technical detail about restoring geography is key. Knowing that it targets a defined condition like SIBO is far more useful than just saying, "Ooh, it helped your tummy." But what's the practical day-to-day payoff for someone experiencing these issues?
The practical benefits are really about immediate relief and comfort. By managing that microbial balance and tackling the underlying overgrowth that causes all that fermentation,
Yeah.
the oil may also directly alleviate those common uncomfortable digestive symptoms that accompany dysbiosis, things like excessive gas and bloating.
So it's addressing the root cause.
Exactly, which then delivers practical comfort.
It's just fascinating how a compound that disrupts bacterial membranes externally is leveraged internally to regulate an ecosystem that has become, well, chaotic. It really ties all three segments of our discussion together.
So looking back at what our sources told us, the wide-ranging potential of oregano oil is genuinely striking. I mean, we've synthesized the knowledge from fighting specific serious pathogens like E. coli
And even antibiotic-resistant strains.
and antibiotic-resistant strains through that membrane disruption, all the way to supporting the body against chronic oxidative stress and heart disease and the inflammation associated with arthritis. And the engine driving every single one of these benefits, whether internal or external, it remains those two potent compounds, carvacrol and thymol.
So you now have a fast, thorough, and focused understanding of this material. You know not just that oregano oil is beneficial, but you understand the specific chemical and biological mechanisms why, by understanding its three core properties and its primary active compounds. That's really the depth we strive for in a deep dive.
And that leads us to a final thought for you to consider as you wrap up this material.
Okay.
Given the scientific evidence highlighted in the sources about carvacrol's structural efficacy against common foodborne pathogens, and even its specific success against antibiotic-resistant strains, this raises an important question for, say, public health strategists.
Which is?
What crucial role might highly effective, naturally occurring compounds, which attack bacteria on a structural level rather than a chemical one, what role might they play in future nutritional and pharmaceutical strategies, especially as the global fight against traditional drug resistance continues to escalate?
That is a challenge worth mulling over.